Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Coach Brandolyn, and today I want to talk about a concept that's been coming up in my life and with my clients a lot lately, and that is something that is called energy vampires. So energy vampires are people who suck your psychic or emotional energy, and energy vampires are especially attracted to highly empathic people and people who have a tendency to give and people who are very sensitive. If you're somebody who's highly empathic and sensitive, energy vampires are going to be like moths to a flame to you, okay? So today I'm going to really break down what energy vampires are and what we can do to help combat having energy vampires suck our life force. Examples of energy vampires are complainers, people who just kind of vomit all of their problems on you, gossipers, people who are constantly talking about the drama in their lives, and also people who have a tendency to avoid responsibility for their life and their situation, and therefore want to complain and gossip to you as a means to make themselves feel better. What we're not talking about here when we're talking about energy vampires is people who have depression or people who feel really sad or people who feel really lonely a lot of the time. That is okay to be truthful about what you're feeling. When we're talking about energy vampires, we're talking about people who expect for you to solve their problems and know that you are such a source of light and love and positivity that they come to you to leech from you and are unwilling to take responsibility for what they're dealing with themselves and just compensate for their deficiency by leeching energy off of you. So it's an entirely different thing to go to somebody and just be real about how you're feeling and say, listen, I feel really sad, I would love to have support. If there's consent and there's a conversation about it, then it's not being an energy vampire. It's just being truthful about where you're at. But if you're someone who constantly has the expectation that somebody else is just going to placate your problems for you, then that person is an energy vampire. So energy vampires are people who need nourishment, right? They're not able to meet their own needs, their own human needs for connection and contribution and creativity. So rather than figuring out a way to meet their own needs, they're going to you to just, again, leech off of your energy and fill that void within themselves. Okay, so you are a source of nourishment. If there are energy vampires in your life that are being attracted to you, that means that they see you as a source of nourishment. So that's really cool, that's really great. However, don't let your ego get too much out of knowing that people come to you to get that nourishment. Because also understand that there are people who are a source of nourishment and positivity and inspiration who don't deal with energy vampires because they're not attracting them. And their energetic boundaries are sealed off enough and they're protecting their energy enough that they're able to be a self-replenishing source of nourishment for others, but there's always consent in the interactions that they're having and they're not plagued and burdened by these energy vampires. So today, a lot of what I want to talk about is how you can self-identify what your ego might be getting out of having energy vampires in your life and how you can fill your own needs so that they no longer are attracted to you. So the first thing that you can ask yourself if you notice that there are a lot of energy suckers and people who are bringing you down in your life is, what might you be getting out of having these people in your life? What ego validation might you be getting out of having these energy vampires? One example of ego validation might be that you feel really great about yourself because people are always coming to you with their problems, and your ego likes the validation of you being that person that gets to help other people. But what we need to understand here is that we're not actually doing other people a service when we continually just provide the nourishment that they're lacking, because we're not making them self-sufficient and we're actually making them dependent on us, and that dependency is what's feeding our egos. So that energy vampire is really just mirroring back to you the ways that you are also leeching energy off of other people by your ego getting that validation of being the helper or being the savior. So the best way to seal off your energetic boundary and give up this problem with having energy vampires is for you to fill those needs for yourself and to help other people fill those needs for themselves so that everybody is self-sufficient and interactions can be consensual and you can be able to be a source of inspiration and love and motivation for each other without feeling depleted after the interaction. Another thing to recognize here is that we're not actually doing a favor for other people when we're letting them suck our energy, when we're allowing them to continue to be an energy vampire in our lives. So our egos like to think, oh my gosh, I have all of these energy vampires leeching energy off of me. I'm so selfless. I'm such a great person. Look at how much I'm helping other people. But really what we want to get real about is the fact that if somebody is deep down in a hole and you climb down in that hole with them, you're not actually helping them at all. Now there's just two people stuck in a hole and there's nobody to pull them out. So the most selfless thing that you can do in the situation of an energy vampire is to actually communicate to them the way that they're occurring to you, and to help kind of, in a very friendly, compassionate way, coach them through seeing what their behavior, the impact that their behavior has on other people. Because chances are a lot of it is unconscious and nobody has communicated back to them the way that they occur to other people. And so they think that people really want to help them. They're not aware that they're being an energy vampire. So really the kindest thing that you can do is to say, hey, listen, I love you. I really would love to keep open this relationship between you and I. And are you open to some feedback from me? And then communicate to them, listen, when you do this, when you come to me and the first words out of your mouth are a complaint, or when we're in a conversation and you're taking up the whole space of the conversation and you're not asking me questions, or you're not leaving space for me to share. The way that that impacts me is that I feel like you don't care enough about me, and also it just kind of drags me down. And I want you to know that you don't have to pretend if you're in a really bad spot, like I want to be here for you, but I would love it if you asked me more questions. I would love if you asked permission. I would love if you say, listen, I really have something on my chest. I would love to get it off. Do I have permission to be able to share with you about something that might negatively affect you? And just request that consent so that it feels more mutual and you feel like you have more say in the matter, rather than just feeling like you're burdened by this, having to react to whatever this person lays on you. So another tip for how to deal with these energy vampires in our lives is just having a conversation where you really communicate your needs. Often when we're in relationships, especially when it's a friendship or a relationship that we've been in for a really long time, we forget that we have a lot of say. We actually have ultimate say in how that relationship goes. And we just start being a default reactor to how the relationship has been in the past. But the important thing to remember here is that if there's a relationship in your life that you don't love and that you haven't created to be exactly as you want it to be, you have two options. You can either re-communicate your needs and re-communicate expectations and make new requests for how you want that relationship to go, or you can seal the energetic boundary there and you can cut the energetic ties and you can choose freely that you no longer want to be investing your energy in that relationship. And in both situations, often what stops us from making that request is the feeling that we would be selfish if we either re-communicated our needs or if we cut the energetic ties and chose to complete that relationship. But again, as I said before, that's actually the most selfless thing that you can do, because as long as you are not communicating your needs with an energy vampire, you're really enabling and supporting their energy vampirism. And you're just somebody else that is giving them your lifeblood for them to leech. And you're actually preventing them from being able to find a sustainable source of nourishment within their own selves. So maybe the thing that they need most in the world is for you to say, listen, this doesn't work for me. Here's what would work for me. Are you willing for our relationship to look like that? And if they're not willing, then you say, okay, great, well, then this relationship just doesn't work for me. That's actually the kindest thing that you could do. The next thing to ask ourselves in the case of having energy vampires in our lives is the question of, what is this trying to teach me? Come from the perspective that everything in your life happens for you and nothing happens to you, and be willing to look and see, is this person showing up as a mirror to show me where I'm not fully communicating my needs, or where I need to better set boundaries? Or are they showing up to show me where my ego is getting some sort of validation from being the helper? Really sit with that question of, okay, there are people in the world who are nourishing and inspiring, wonderful people who don't have energy vampires. So what am I doing to attract these energy vampires in my life? What is this mirroring back to me, and what is this trying to teach me? And then again, be willing to accept that lesson and be willing to put something in place to meet your own needs and communicate to the other person how they can better meet their own needs. So once you've done all of that, once you've really looked to see what this person has mirrored back to you and you've asked yourself the question, what is it trying to teach you? Now we can get to the point where we can start strengthening our energy boundaries. So the most important part in this is being able to recognize what energy is yours and what energy is someone else's. So if you've just hung out with a person for a while and you leave, and beforehand you felt really great and afterwards you feel really depleted, the first thing to do is to just understand that that energy is not yours, that this is energy that you took from somebody else. And when you get that it's not yours, then you no longer identify with it, you no longer take ownership of it, and you can look at it and there can be a space created between you and this energy. And once you're at that place of looking at it like it's an object, you can say, hello energy, I see you, and it's okay that you're here, and I also recognize that you're not mine. And at that point, you can willingly send that energy back to wherever it came from, and you can feel into the energy that is yours, and you can begin to send, however you want to visualize it. If you want to visualize it as sending love through your body, or sending light through your body, or visualize yourself surrounded in a white light and pushing all of that energy out and pushing it back to where it came from. So then the last thing to be sure to do in the case of energy vampires is to surrender all sense of guilt that you have about strengthening your energetic boundaries. The number one reason why we have energy vampires is because we feel guilty and we feel like we're not allowed to feel as good as we feel, or we're not allowed to be as positive or as inspired or as healthy or as successful or as whatever as we are. And so we feel like we need to create openings in our energetic boundaries to allow other people in, and we kind of become like this refugee camp of just letting other people in and letting them leech off of us because we feel guilty for what we have. So before you can really effectively push out other people's energy and strengthen your own energetic boundaries, you first have to be willing to give up that guilt and give up this notion that by you having all of the loving juiciness, whatever it is that you have in your life, that you're taking from other people, because you're not, right? There's infinite abundance in this world. So whatever abundance you have does not mean that it's detracting or depleting anybody else's ability to access abundance. So now that all of that has been said and I've given you tips for how to identify energy vampires, also identify what you might be getting out of other people being energy vampires of you, and how to really strengthen your energetic boundaries, the last thing that I want to say is that you do not need to live in fear of you being an energy vampire. I remember the first time that I heard this term, I was like, oh no, well I always reach out to people when I'm feeling sad, and I ask people to hang out all the time, and I, really put a lot of energy into the relationships in my life. Does that make me an energy vampire? And what I realized is that you're only an energy vampire, again, like I said in the beginning, when there's not consent. You're an energy vampire when you're not in communication and when you're not being curious about the impact of your behavior on the people in your lives. So I always am sure to say, hey, listen, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling lonely today. I would love to call you, I would love to hang out, and I completely respect if you're not up for that right now, and I won't take it personally whatsoever. So only if you choose, only if you would also like to, would I like for you to call me or hang out with me right now. And then if they say yes, then great, then it's consensual, and then I know that they actually are getting something out of being with me and supporting me. And if they say no, I really have to honor what I said and not take it personally and say, okay, I totally get that. Because there are times in my life when I'm not emotionally or energetically available to support other people, and I would love to have the freedom to say no to that as well. So if you are concerned about being an energy vampire, then just feel free to open up a dialogue with the people in your life about it and ask them, when I do this, how is it for you? What is the impact of this behavior on you? Do you like that I do this? Do you think that I should stop doing this? And actually be willing to take and integrate that feedback without taking it personally. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if there's any questions that you have about any of this. If you're an energy vampire, if somebody in your life is, how to strengthen your energetic boundaries, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more coaching content. Thanks so much for watching.